Scooter's coffee, like, changes lives. Okay, people, it is June 28th. Turkey season's been wrapped up here in Nebraska for a little while now. I don't really turkey hunt, but the next season up is deer season. That is the most important season to me. Leading into that, it starts in September. I think 2 months out is just for fine tuning. Everything else is set. I know what bow I'm shooting. I know my arrow setup. I know everything like that. I am strictly focused on fine tuning. So getting broadhead sighted in, and then also the topic of today's video, tying in your PEEP sight, just making sure that it's totally set with your anchor point, and then also the next video, tying in a D-loop. Both of those are really important, and it is also one of those things where there are a million ways to do it. There's definitely not a right answer, but there are definitely a lot of wrong answers. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys kind of how I tie in my PEEP sights. This is a method that I just kind of took a couple things from a couple of different knots that I saw just online and kind of adapted it the way that I like it, the way that it looks really clean to me. And the main thing being with this is that you see a lot of people who tie in PEEP sights where they just will not budge. Like you can hammer those things and they don't move a centimeter. Believe it or not, and according to my girlfriend, I am not perfect. Those PEEP sights are not for me because I know that there is just way too much opportunity for me to have a messed up anchor point or just have stuff change with my form, obviously improving, that I may need to change my PEEP height if I'm switching up releases or something like that. You know, Lord forbid I lose a release and I have to shoot with a backup one. You might need to change your PEEP height for that. So this option and this knot that I use, it allows you to budge your PEEP sight. You definitely really have to kind of bear down and try to move your PEEP sight, but it's not gonna just move around if it's getting bumped in the brush or on branches or anything like that. It's secure, but it just gives you that option to move it if you really have to. You also should mark where your PEEP sight is, so that way if it moves, you know. But without further ado, I'll just get to my knot that I do. I'm going to be tying it in on this bow right here. If you guys kind of have tracked the channel, that is one of the first bows that I built. That's the budget bow. It's from Cabela's. So I'm just going to tie in the PEEP sight the way that I would do it and the way that it's tied in right now. And we'll get right to it. Okay, so the first thing with this knot is what material I'm going to use. Just this 3D material from BCY. Now I have it in black and blue. The main thing that I am not using blue for is just because I don't really like having my serving color being the same color as my strings, especially if it's the knots around like my PEEP sight or my nose button, anything like that, just because if I ever need to cut these out, I don't want to risk accidentally cutting a bowstring, so I just like having that contrast there. The first thing that I'm going to do is tie in the PEEP itself, and then I'm going to tie in the bottom and the top knots. Tying in the PEEP itself is really easy. I just do overhand and underhand knots, and then I finish off with a square knot. It's really basic. I don't really put too much stress on actually tying in the PEEP. So starting off, I'm going to go ahead and go over the top, and I go just personally the left string over the right string first. Go ahead, cinch down on that. Then you do the same thing on the bottom. Left string over the right string and go back on top. And now this is where I finished out with a square knot. So I'm gonna go ahead, left over right, tie that real quick. So I went ahead and I have it left over right now. Now this is the important part. I've been going left over right the whole time. On this knot, I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm going right over left and cinching it down, and that right there locks it in as a square knot. After that, you can use a razor blade or you can burn it with a lighter. I personally like to cut it so there's only about a 1/4 of an inch hanging off there. And then I will grab a lighter and just burn it down. Now, I've burnt a string before. It's not fun. The process of obviously getting a new bowstring, it's just wasted money, and it just kind of puts a hamper on your time. So you can either just be really careful about it What I will do sometimes is I will just have a little heat guard on there pretty much. I'll put it up against the bowstring, and then I burn the serving down. Just kind of lick my finger, stamp it down a little bit just so those knots don't unfray. And there you go. You have your PEEP sight tied in. It's easy as that. Now, the top and bottom knots is where it gets different. There's a million different ways to do it, and I'm gonna go into mine right now. So same thing, you're gonna use BCY 3D serving material. I like to get a lot of extra for this. I will go with maybe a foot to a foot and a half, just so I have a lot of room to work with, and I have a lot of leverage to pull on. I am going to make a square knot. So I'm gonna go over the top, and my right end is always just a little bit shorter. So I'm going to go left over right and tie that down. I kind of cinch down on that first one and push it up a little bit on that little gap. And then I'm going to go right over left and tie that square knot. I have that square knot tied. This right end is my tag end, so I'm just gonna let that loose because it's really short compared to this end right here on the left. I'm just gonna hold this off to the side. I even sometimes will put it through the other end of the PEEP sight, that little opening, just so it's not getting in the way. Now, with this black string on the left-hand side, I basically just start going through, make a little loop, push the end through it, and just do a half hitch. I'm fairly certain that's what these knots are called. So I do one of those, and I will go all the way up to 6 half hitches. 2, 3, 4, 6. Now, I'm gonna do the same thing that I've been doing and make a loop, except I'm just gonna loop this string material through there 4 times. So I have a total of 10 knots. Now once I have those loops tied, I still have this long end right here, and I'm going to go through and loop this string through 3 times. So that way with the other half hitches and the square knot, I have a total of 10 knots on this end. That's not really important. I just like having it be a round number, and 10 just kind of looks good in my head. You can go more, you can go less. I really wouldn't recommend going below about 6 knots in total, just because you don't want to lose that security. And sometimes after you lose 6 knots, you can just kind of, it's not as stable. So now I have the loop going clockwise around my string, and I have this tag end right here. What I'm gonna do is start unraveling that tag, or unraveling that loop, and go over the loops that I've already made. So it's just wrapping around itself. So I'll go back 3 times. I kind of cinch it down on here. Now, if I keep pulling on this tag end, it's going to close the loop that I have right here. The main thing that I would do before I do that is I take the original tag end from the very beginning and I put it through the loop, pull it through, and then I pull that tag end closed. The reason I pull that original tag end through the loop before I close it is because now you have pressure from both ends of the knot, keeping that material tight. You have it from the top because I pulled that tag end that was at the top back that way, and you have it from the bottom because that material from the bottom pulled back that way. And that is what makes it so you really can pull and push on both sides if you ever need to move your PEEP sight. There are some people who would do pretty much that exact same knot, except starting off they don't tie a square knot. They just put the string material or the serving material through the string and shove it in there a little bit. That's great, but if you want to move that knot, you have to move it and rotate it with the twist of the string. It's just not as easy, and it can put some unwanted twist in your string. So all I will do now is I just take both tag ends through, go ahead and cut them. Same deal with about 1/4 inch on each side. And then same thing as before, I'll go ahead and burn them down. So now that I've kind of walked through on that end here, I'm going to do the same thing on this end. I'm going to go a little bit faster and just talk through while I do it. So starting off with that square knot. Once you have that, go ahead, put the tag end through the back, and then just start making half hitches. And before you finish it off with this loop that you have right here, you're going to take that original tag end and poke it on through. Like so. And then go ahead and pull that knot tight. It's hard to see on camera, but when you tie that knot in, you can see it cinching down on itself from both ends. And then you can go ahead, kind of force it either way you want. Go ahead, cut and burn. So that right there is the finished knot. I'll go ahead and put some B-roll in the background of just some close-ups of it and everything like that, but it's a really easy knot to do. It's pretty common, at least the half hitch style is a pretty common way of tying in a PEEP. And I just finish off or start off on that square knot, so that way you still can move it up and down a little bit. For example, if I took a piece of D-loop and tightened down and pulled, you can move it that way. Same deal, you can grab from the other end, tighten down and push it that way. That way you're able to adjust your PEEP. Obviously, you probably shouldn't need to be adjusting it that much, but even like a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, anything like that, it goes a long way. So guys, that in my opinion is the easiest way to tie in a PEEP sight, or at least how I do it. You really avoid a lot of problems that way, not needing to worry about not being able to move your PEEP sight or cutting it out and then readjusting it. Now, the best way to know if your PEEP sight has moved or not is just marking it with a Sharpie. It's what I always do. There's marks on all of my bows where my PEEP sight is, where my D-loop is, everything like that. Just redundancy is absolute key. If you think you know, just double check. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. It is definitely something that I just like sharing that knowledge. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like. If you guys want to see more of this stuff, please subscribe. I have a video coming out in a couple days about a D-loop and tying in that knot and kind of my secret to tying in a D-loop. So make sure you stick around to check that out. We got a lot of stuff coming this hunting season. I'm really ramped up for it. But in the meantime, guys, 4th of July is coming up, so have a absolutely great time with that. Hope everybody's staying safe, and I will catch you guys in the next video.